All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday and happy May. Somehow we have already made it to May in the 2026-27 academic year. No, 25-26. I've already jumped a year ahead. That tells you exactly where my brain is this morning, not quite with it. But my name is Rebecca Howell. I am chair of the Employee Forum, and I welcome all of you to today's meeting. I'm looking forward to greeting our new delegates, both in person and online, and also welcoming back our returning delegates, those that have both been reelected and those that are continuing in their term through next year. We have a pretty full agenda. There have been some changes in the last couple of days since I initially sent out the agenda, but I promise you it has stayed full. So I'd also like to welcome our guests and members of the press. We have several folks that are joining us both in person and online, and I look forward to hearing from them. A couple of things to get started with. I'd like to just quickly go over our annual Carolina Spring Blood Drive results. And Renata, are you on today?
Yes, I'm here. How's everybody doing?
Good so far.
Awesome. Okay, so the Carolina Blood Drive was a wonderful success. We had an amazing day with a wonderful playlist. People kept telling me it was great. So if you didn't come, you missed out on some good music. We had 402 donors show up. We had 92 volunteers, and we collected over 425 units of blood, which could go towards saving up to 1,200 lives. So it was an amazing day. It was wonderful. Even though it was cold and rainy, people came out to help, to donate. So we're gonna take a break and then start working on the next one.
All right. And that will be in December, right?
That will be in December. So the Holiday Carolina Drive is a little over 6 months out. So a little short break and then we're back to it.
Sounds great. And thank you to all of the volunteers and particularly to the committee for pulling together the blood drive. As always, it is amazing to see that event come together. It was our 38th annual spring drive, and it works like clockwork. Everybody is there 6:30 in the morning. Folks are putting everything up and getting it ready, and then folks are there to donate as early as 7 in the morning, and it truly is amazing to see that come together. So thank you to everyone that was able to make it out, either as a volunteer or donor or just coming to say hello. We have some upcoming meetings over the summer. We have a little bit of a break next week simply because, well, it's the week of commencement and we have a lot of things to celebrate like next week. And I know a lot of our delegates are extremely involved and busy in all that happens next week to celebrate the successes of our students. But we have a committee meeting, an executive committee meeting on Tuesday, May 19th on Zoom. So those of you who are on the executive committee, you know who you are. New delegates, don't worry, that's not you yet. So those that are on the committee, I'll see you then. The staff advisory committee to the Chancellor will be meeting. We are not meeting Wednesday, May 6th. Are we meeting? We are not meeting Wednesday, May 6th. We have deferred that to June. So stay tuned. And I will send an updated invite for the next SAC meeting. Our full body meeting will be Friday, June 5th. And that will be at 9 a.m. in this room here in the Adams School of Dentistry, room 411. We hope you can join us in person. If not, we'll see you on Zoom. It's a fun meeting to come to in person. This year, CNAC will be sponsoring our event, so we'll have refreshments. They will be speaking to us about the work they're doing to advocate for state employees, and they will be able to answer questions as well. So we do hope you're able to join us here in Curry, room G411. And we are also going to be celebrating our peer recognition award winners. We have just selected them. I will not announce them today, but I got a peek at the winners, and I'm really excited to be able to recognize those folks in June. And then our Vice Chancellor's representatives meeting will be Thursday, May 14th at 2 o'clock. That will also be via Zoom. And new delegates, you are invited to join us for that, and you'll receive an email if you haven't already, regarding presenting questions for that meeting. I don't have any other announcements at this point. I do see that Chancellor Roberts has arrived, so welcome. Thank you for joining us this Friday before the fun of commencement week. I'd like to turn this over to you and let you address the campus. And about half the room today is new delegates, so it's about half an hour.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So I think April and the first couple of weeks of May are the busiest time of the year, at least for me and for those of us in South Building. I think it might be true for many of you as well. The campus looks just spectacular. The view I have from my office at South Building is of the old well, and ever since the students have gotten their graduation robes, there's been a long line every day. They're there in the morning when I come in, they're there in the evening when I leave, taking photos in their graduation robes. And if that doesn't inspire you about what we're all trying to do here, I'm not sure what to tell you. I find it tremendously inspiring to see these students excited about graduation, excited about their time at Carolina, and excited for the next chapter. Also, like you probably get a lot of questions about what you're doing with your summer, and I'm always saying, you know, we work straight through the summer. It's the students who get the summer off, and those of us who work here, we don't get the same time off that the students get. And so I know it's an exceptionally busy time, but I hope that after graduation that everyone has a little bit more time to think and to breathe. And I appreciate everyone's hard work getting through the end of the semester here. I know you're having an update later in the agenda on Service First, and so I'll let the folks who are doing that update tell you more about that. I'll talk a little bit about the budget. So the Board of Trustees passed our budget without any modifications and on schedule, which is different than what happened last year and I think the year before. So we have our budget in place. We're now in the state budget process. So the General Assembly is meeting in short session. As you know, we don't have a state budget for the current fiscal year. I'm not going to make predictions about what the General Assembly is going to do with the budget. I know better than that, but here's what I hope happens. I hope that we receive the enrollment funding that is currently overdue. So as you all know, enrollment funding is funded in arrears, meaning that we don't have the enrollment funding, not just for the current freshmen, but also for the current sophomores. And I hope and believe that the General Assembly will catch the whole UNC system up on enrollment funding. I suspect there will not be a legislative salary increase for the current fiscal year. I think what they're going to do is look ahead to the next fiscal year that starts on July 1st. And again, I hope they will put in place a legislative salary increase and possibly a bonus to reflect the fact that there was no LSI for the current fiscal year, but do it for the fiscal year that will start this summer. Again, General Assembly will do whatever it sees best to do, and I know better than to predict, but that's what I would hope happens. And just a couple of other updates to mention. The Board of Trustees meets again on the 13th, 2 weeks from now, and I believe there that they are going to approve the next step in the Carolina North development, which is the approval of the master planner, which will enable us to begin planning the site. We're in a competitive process right now, and I'm happy to answer more questions about that. We announced that we have a new Vice Chancellor of Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development. His name is Tommy Sowers. I know he'd be delighted to come speak to this group as he gets up to speed here. Very strong background in academia, in the military, in the federal government, and in the private sector. Really a remarkable resume. We had the AI conference a couple of weeks ago. A number of you were there. That was our inaugural AI conference and was, I think, exceptionally well received. The survey feedback was very positive, and we're going to go ahead and do that again next year. We're planning for that now. And then the enrollment growth that we've discussed before, as you know, we have 500 additional students in the current freshman class. We're going to have that same additional 500 in the class that we're admitting now that will start in the fall. So it's not going to be bigger than the current freshman class. It'll be the same size as the current freshman class. I think we're targeting between 5,100 and 5,200 students in that class. So that would be like this current freshman class. We believe the biggest classes that we've had here at Carolina. Again, not bigger from here, but bigger compared to where we've been previously. And then I know some of you are either going on or involved in planning the bus tour. The bus tour is really a terrific facet, I think, of life here at Carolina. I think it's important to get out around the state and learn about what's happening more broadly outside of the triangle and hear from folks around the state, and also have an opportunity to tell them about the great things happening at Carolina. But I think the original intent of the bus tour was that we would listen more than we would talk, and I think that's the primary objective. I myself will be traveling around the state. I'm going to be predominantly in the eastern part of the state in late May and early June, just trying to get around to a number of communities around the state in the same context. So again, lots going on, busy time of year. Appreciate everyone's hard work. Happy to take any questions about anything that might be on your minds. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you, Chancellor Roberts. Any questions? So are you joining us for the bus tour?
I don't think I can go on the bus tour itself, but I am on the transcription. It calls me Sheriff Roberts. You see that? I like that better. Last year, what I did was I spoke to the kickoff for the bus tour, and I think I might be doing the same thing
Okay,
again
great.
this year.
Wonderful. And there is a little button, sorry, for folks that are new to this room, there's a little button. If you push and hold that, the folks online should be able to hear you as well. A little bit strange.
I got it.
Perfect, thanks.
I'm from Study Abroad. I run the Study Abroad office. I have a general question about enrollment growth. So I recently read that it's being considered whether or not they're going to follow the same in-state enrollment percents that they do now for the new addition. Is that true? Or is it being considered for the whole incoming class or just the added enrollment?
The entire freshman class is subject to the same in-state, out-of-state split that we've been operating under all along. So the class taken as a whole will be 82% in-state and 18% out-of-state.
And so even the newer enrollment, so we're being asked to add enrollment over time. And I just read that there might be some sort of different condition under which that additional enrollment of over time, 5,000 students would be under a different objective. Is that true?
No, we have said that we intend to grow enrollment by 5,000 students. Obviously, very significant growth, but over 10 years. We said that 2 years ago. So over the next 8 years, we'll have 2,000 additional students within 4 years from now, because we have these 500 incremental in what will be the sophomore class and the freshman class. But we're going to stay for the foreseeable future at that 82-18 split. There's sometimes people call that a statutory mandate. It's not in law, but it is Board of Governors policy, and so we can't change that ourselves.
Thank you.
Got a question online. Do we know what the plan is for allowing raises? Are we waiting still until the budget is passed?
Yes.
Okay.
As I say, we're optimistic about the budget. We are obviously in close dialogue with the General Assembly about this, as is every other university in the system and every other state agency. So there's a concerted focus on this, but we'll have to wait and see what the General Assembly decides to do.
I'm Ellie Alexander. I'm the department manager in economics. I was wondering if you could give us a bit of an update on the tuition increase and when that would be effective. And then a clarifying question about the master plan that the Board of Trustees is planning to hopefully approve in a couple weeks. And is that just related to Carolina North, or does it include any capital projects on North Campus?
Yeah, good questions. So on tuition, there's obviously 4 tuition components: in-state, out-of-state, graduate, undergraduate. So undergraduate resident tuition is going up by 3%. And that takes effect for this coming academic year. The only students affected by that are the incoming freshmen, because resident students have a 8-semester guarantee that tuition won't rise as long as you remain continuously enrolled. So what the Board of Trustees passed and the Board of Governors approved was this 3% increase for resident students, but it phases in as new classes start. No current students are affected. For non-resident undergraduate students, it's roughly a 10% increase, and that flows through right away. All current students are affected. We've said that we are committed to keeping non-resident tuition at market rates. We were significantly below market. We needed about 20% increase to get to market rates. We thought we were going to do it over 2 years just to minimize the impact on families, because it does flow through right away. The peer group that we benchmark against raised tuition by so much after year 1 that we think we may need 3 increases to keep pace with the peer group. But we try not to raise by more than about 10% a year for the non-resident students. So they will see that increase for the coming academic year. And then graduate student tuition is much more program by program. And some programs are going up and some are not, just based on a calibration of where we are against the market. What the Board of Governors, we believe, is going to approve at the May meeting is the appointment of a master planner rather than the master plan itself. So that planner will work with us and a development team that we also hope to identify to plan the first phase of the site. And when I say first phase, we're going to be talking about the first phase for several more years. That's a huge project by itself, 250 acres roughly. It's the former airport property itself, the area that's cleared and graded for the former airport operations. That process specifically does not involve other capital projects, but there are multiple other capital projects on the books. In particular, the Board of Governors at the meeting 2 weeks ago in Morganton approved our $300 million capital plan for housing, which entails at least 3 projects: the demolition this summer of Jackson Hall on Country Club and the creation, the construction of a new dorm there, 730 beds roughly across from Forest Theater, the first new dorm built in that part of campus in a generation. We're going to demolish Parker and Teague and build significantly more density there, right there in the heart of campus. Those dorms are beyond the end of their useful life, and then a comprehensive renovation of Hinton James. So that's all been approved and we have the funding in place.
Can I just, as a quick follow-up, I'm in economics. I think you've been in our building, Gardner Hall. In general, like we experienced in the college and in classroom scheduling this year, it's extremely difficult to schedule all the classes we need, especially to serve all of the new incoming students. And so I know that we are at the mercy of the General Assembly in a lot of ways, but that is really affecting us immediately in building classrooms, more large form classrooms that fit these introductory courses of 400 students, et cetera. So I'll just put that there and say we are eagerly awaiting those plans in the future.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. We need more and better large lecture hall space. And there's three parts to that. There's new construction, there's renovation, which is a really important piece of it. There are spaces of sufficient size in multiple places around campus, but the space is not as efficient as it could be. And it can be renovated, in some cases, relatively inexpensively. It's just we haven't focused on it. I was in one the other day that I think for between $100,000 and $200,000, we can make much more functional. And part of it too is better scheduling. And this room is a great example. So this is a terrific, modern, large capacity lecture hall space. It's in the dental school, but it should be available for programming and scheduling by the university. And that's true for all of our space. And too often, particularly for these large lecture halls, the capacity has not been used as efficiently as possible because it's been balkanized, and individual schools and units have protected their space. We've got this significant need across campus, and we need to do a better job using space. I don't know how this particular room is used on a day-to-day basis, but it's a good example of the kind of space that we want to make sure we're using as efficiently as possible.
I do have a question, and then I've got one online. You know, for many years, we were operating under Carolina Next, more as a, you know, kind of our strategic vision and mission. And I know that has been deactivated. Where are we in the process of establishing a new mission and strategic vision?
So with respect to the Carolina Next plan, I wouldn't necessarily use the term deactivated, but when I started, I read multiple strategic plans from multiple peer institutions, and most university strategic plans are not, in my view, especially strategic. If strategy is about focus and choices, most university strategic plans, not just ours, every other one I looked at, more kind of a laundry list of here are all the things we're doing that we want to keep doing except with more money, and then here are a bunch of things we want to start doing. And I thought it might be more effective to focus on a few strategic priorities. Okay. And we've been talking about the same 4 strategic priorities really since I started now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So AI, engineering, enrollment growth, and the physical master plan for the campus. And as you would hope with a coherent strategic plan, those priorities are starting to reinforce and support each other. And so Carolina North is a great example, obviously a priority of the physical master plan, but also crucial to our efforts to increase enrollment. We plan 2,200 student beds there in the first phase, split between graduate and undergraduate, and our efforts to build out our engineering capabilities. So we have a significant shortage of large lecture hall space. As you mentioned, we have a acute shortage of lab space that can be used for the increasing demand for STEM degrees. So we're going to stay focused on those strategic objectives for the foreseeable future. I do think we need to, and you touched on this, update the overall master plan for the campus itself, for the physical master plan, not just for Carolina North, but to make sure that we've thought through as we grow over the next couple of decades, that we've thought through how we're going to use the space that we have available. It's been less acute here than at most schools because we have had the luxury of having more space than most of our peer institutions. A lot of our peers are scrapping and clawing for a quarter acre here and there. Every time they want to build something new, they have to tear something down. And we haven't had that challenge, but it doesn't mean we don't need to plan. So we're going to embark on that effort as well.
Great, thank you. Keith, I see your hand up online.
Yes. Haley,
Hey, Keith.
how are you?
Doing well. I hope you are. Wish you were here in
I'm
person.
great. I am, well, that's coming soon. I have probably two questions. The first question is sort of encompasses the student growth that we're going for at Carolina. Carolina North and Service First. So I know that with the increase in students that we have plans in place to be able to house those students and educate those students in facilities that are adequate for teaching. I don't fully understand what all is going to be at Carolina North, but I also know that while we're planning for these spaces for students, we're coming into a situation where some people who are fully remote are now being called back into the office to be there 3 or 4 days a week, which, according to our future of work plan that was done, if a person is in the office X amount of time, then they have a designated workstation. We are already, as a university, at capacity with staff. What are we doing? And I'm not talking in the future, like when Carolina North is developed, because people are being called back into the office now. What are we doing to ensure that these people have workspaces and we're not overcrowded? And like, I myself am one of those people who is fully remote, lives 3 hours and 15 minutes away, and now I have to come back in to the office 4 days a week. And I'm pretty sure we're going into a rented space, which is a cost for the university. I'm just trying to reconcile all of this as we're calling people in and we don't have space for people. Like, what is our plan for this?
Good question. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to make this the last question because I'm supposed to be somewhere else in 10 minutes. But we don't have a campus-wide back to work policy, as hopefully everybody knows. This is a unit by unit decision, individual managers making decisions about their workforce. And we do not have a space constraint more broadly across campus. I walk all over campus all the time. We are significantly underutilizing our space at the highest level. I was speaking to the faculty council a few weeks ago, and somebody pointed out that in her unit, there are offices assigned to faculty members who are no longer alive. And I don't think it's unique to that unit. So we have space so that to me, the challenge is not, do we have enough space? It's, are we using our space as effectively as possible? There are people who have been remote for years or who have retired or who have, in some cases, passed away, who have dedicated space assigned that is not being used. And then we have other situations, like it sounds like is the case in your unit, where we don't have enough space available. So we've got to get much, much smarter about capacity utilization. It's not a nice to have, it's a have to have, given how much money we spend on our space. So I think I've said this before, but if you think about our budget in 2 buckets, capital budget, operating budget, our operating budget is almost entirely people, salaries and benefits. Our capital budget is almost entirely space, building, maintaining, our physical plant. And so if we're not using our space effectively, I just gave another example in talking about the large lecture halls, then we're sub-optimizing on one of our most important resources. So we're getting better data on capacity utilization, and we're going to get much smarter about how we use the space that we have. Part of that too is what you were talking about with Gardner Hall. So as we, and this came up with Bingham Hall as well, as we renovate space, the biggest challenge when you renovate a building is where do you put everybody who was working in that building before? And that's why it's important to have adequate swing space. So as we renovate and upgrade buildings around campus, we have enough space for everyone to move to while they're building their spaces is being upgraded and improved. So you're going to hear much more about that. It's not going away as an area of focus. We've got to get smarter about capacity utilization for our physical space. I'm sorry that I've got to go now. Thank you again for having me here. Again, thanks to everybody for your hard work this entire year. I'm looking forward to getting to graduation, getting through graduation, and look forward to being back with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Roberts. Or Sheriff Roberts, I guess it is. I need to enunciate a little better. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you at commencement, if not before. All right. So this is probably going to be one of my favorite times of the year. We are now moving into welcoming our new delegates, and I'd also like to recognize our continuing delegates and those who are stepping off. So to those delegates whose terms are ending, thank you. It has been, for those of you serving 1 year, those of you serving 2 years, it has been a very eventful, I think is an appropriate word, year or two, and you have done incredible work representing the employees of Carolina, and I really appreciate all that you have done, and I hope you will stay involved, even if you are not a delegate. Please remember that even if you are not a delegate, you are welcome to serve on committees, attend committee meetings, come join us here for the monthly meetings. We would love to have your continued participation whenever your time, your schedule allows. I'd like to invite for those that are here in person, if you are a continuing delegate, please come on down to the front. I know there are a couple of you. Don't be shy. You're on the forum, you can't be shy. Re-elected or continuing in your term, yes. Just to kind of give you an eyeball of those. And then if you are the same online, please go ahead and raise your hand so you'll pop up to the top of the screen. And there we go. Folks be able to see who you are in the gallery. Thank you. And you can't go anywhere yet. Now I'd like to invite all of the new delegates to please come join us. Can share these. And then the same online, those of you who are new delegates, go ahead and raise your hands. I've got a couple of these to share. Here's another one. There you go. All right, I am passing out the new delegate charge, but I am also going to share it. So give me just a moment. I know I have it somewhere. There we are. Let's get this shared. Even if you are a continuing delegate, please consider joining along with your new delegate charge. Never hurts to, well, there we are. Okay, I was like, I know it's coming up somewhere. All right, here we go. All right, so I'll go ahead and get us started, and you all can unmute yourselves, and we'll just have a nice little reading of the new delegate charge. I share the employee forum's vision
to seek continually improve the quality of life at the
University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
For its students, faculty, and employees.
for mutual understanding, recognition of employee contributions, and respect for the worth of the individual.
I promise to seek out the issues, interests,
ideas,
ideas, and participation of employees, and to bring items needed in further consideration to the forum's attention.
I
I also will endeavor
to
to develop a
greater understanding
of the university's
operation
operation and its
and its
personnel
personnel
policies.
policies.
I will work to develop proactive, progressive recommendations
and
and advocate these to the administration and to employees,
and to
and to
provide
provide
an
an
effective
two-way
communication
link between the administration and the employees. I will help foster an open, positive environment throughout the university and will support achievement of the university's mission of teaching, research, and public service.
Excellent. Congratulations and welcome new delegates. All right, feel free to, if you do not have a employee forum button, please come get one if you are here in person. If you are not here in person, we will get one to you. So just hang tight and we'll make sure we get that. We've got little ones and big ones, so whichever one you prefer. But I encourage you to wear these when you're out and about with the forum. They are magnetic, so you don't have to worry about pins getting in the way of tearing up your clothes.
Folks, don't forget to lower your hands.
Oh, yes. Or I might call on you. Careful. All right. So those of you who are rolling off, the end of your term is officially June 30th. So you still have a June meeting to attend as a delegate. Those of you who are new delegates, we're looking forward to seeing you at the June meeting as well. So you can celebrate folks who have won our awards, both our peer recognition awards within the forum, and then the ones that were open to nominations across the campus. So thank you for those of you who ran. I do want to quickly go through the list of folks who were newly elected. In Division 1, representing Division 1, which is EHRA non-faculty, and my apologies if I mispronounce your name, Warren Chewy, John Deegan, Julie Thoralt, Jennifer Washington, Taisha Williams, and Natasha Young. Division 2, which is SHRA Service and Maintenance. And please don't worry if you don't know the difference in who is in what division. It's a very complicated process. We did not have any candidates from this division. We have 4 continuing through next year. Division 3, SHRA Skilled Craft is Megan Harvell. Division 4, SHRA Administrative Support and Academic Affairs, Sarah Green. We also have Courtney Height, Jennifer Young, and Stephanie Metzen serving 1-year appointments. In Division 5, which is SHRA Administrative Support and Health Affairs, we have Kelly Skurlock Cross and a 1-year appointment for Alana Potts. And I don't know why I feel the need to be mic'd twice. Just realized that. Division 6, we have Tiffany Carver and Angel Miller, and that's SHRA Administrative Support and other areas. Division 7, SHRA Technical, we have Ainsley Briggs, Kelsey Dillon, Sherry Hitt, Richard Hunter Perez, Jeffrey Neal, Annetta Streeter, Alex Toshi, and Susie Toro. And 1-year appointments for Drexel Rivers, Jalen Turner, and Amber Wren. Division 8,
Rebecca.
Professional. We have Kristen Chavez, Shayla Evans Hollingsworth, Adriana Giblisco, Chrissy Greenberg, Brett Kenny, Natalia Neal, and Arena Olenicheva, and a 1-year appointment for Michael Williams. In Division 9, EHRA Executive Administrative Managerial, we have Sydney Zanson, and a 1-year appointment for Michael Penny. So congratulations to all of those who won their election and or received a 1-year appointment. I'm looking forward to getting to meet you during orientation and at our retreat. Orientation dates are in the process of being determined. Schedules for all of us that are running that are a little crazy at the moment. We are pulling those together, and you will get all of that information via email in the next week or so. There will be an orientation session later in the month of May. That would be this month. Yes, it is May 1st. And then there will be a retreat late in July. So just keep your eye out for those emails with those dates. All right. Our next item on the agenda, let me find it.
Hey, Rebecca.
Yeah.
I think your mic might be like partially covered or something. It's not coming through as clearly on the Zoom.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I think it just flipped over. All right. Thank you for that, Natasha. I have shifted a couple things on the agenda just due to time constraints. We're going to go ahead and quickly go through the consent agenda just so that I know what committees I need to pull out for additional updates when we get to our old business section. Are there any divisions or committees that would like to pull out their committee for an update towards the end of the meeting? I know we already did blood drive as an update. I believe leadership, education, and career development. Did you need to pull anything out? Okay. Anyone else?
Excuse me, Rebecca, no,
Yes.
no report from the tuition task forces.
You do? Okay.
No reports.
Oh, no reports. Okay. So we'll leave that in the consent agenda. Anything else need to come out from the consent agenda? All right, do I have a motion to approve said consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. If there are no objections, we will consider the consent agenda approved. All right. We are now we're running a little early, but that is not a terrible thing. Double check my timing here. Yeah, we can. We've got a couple of minutes. Go for it.
Updates from leadership, education, and career development. Carolina Family Scholarship applications are live. Please encourage anybody you know who has a dependent that will attend any UNC system school or community college in the upcoming academic year. These are need-based scholarships for dependents of UNC employees. Information is on the forum website. Yes, please do encourage folks to apply that you know. If you want to read applications, that's going to happen in the summer in July-ish, I think. These are great. These students rate really great applications. So if you're interested, please email me or Siobhan, who I'm going to rely on to put my email in the chat. And yes, please consider it. This is a nice time for reviewing applications since it's in the summer, like after fiscal year end. So hopefully folks will have some availability. And we will work on updates for professional development grants, which will open in June. Don't have any other update on that yet.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Next on our agenda is our Service First update, and we are going to start with Natiaya Neal, our Vice Chair of the Employee Forum, and she's going to share some of our listening session takeaways. It's good to have you in person, Natiaya. And Matt, do you want to go ahead and share her presentation? If not, I've got it. Just let me know. Yeah. I can. Hang on one second. There we go. And just tell me when to move your slides for you. It's thinking about it. There we go. we go.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. First, I want to shout out to all employees who attended listening sessions in the month of April. We appreciate the time that you took to give us feedback for this report. Okay, next slide, Rebecca. So just to remind everyone about the purpose of why we host the listening sessions is to gather staff feedback, elevate concerns and insights, and advocate for improved communication and implementation. Okay, next slide. The sessions were facilitated by the UNC Employee Forum. All feedback was gathered anonymously, no names were recorded. We held 2 sessions in the month of April, 1 virtual and 1 in person, to accommodate staff who work remotely. In total, there were 315 staff members who joined the forum to give us feedback and discuss ongoing issues related to the Service First initiative. Next slide. So once again, we noted the same kind of themes, insufficient communication, lack of role and process clarity, workflow uncertainty, and significant gaps in trust and engagement. Okay, next slide.
It's thinking. There we go.
Okay, good. So in regards to communication and clarity, I would say that communication was definitely, once again, a dominant theme across the discussions in April. Staff report a lack of clear, consistent, and transparent communication. Communication lacks role-specific information, timely updates, consistent messaging. There's confusion driven by rumors versus official communications, changing or conflicting information. And I would say the most interesting thing that I heard related to this key takeaway was that staff were getting most of their information during our meetings held each month. But there were some other quotes that I noted too. I hear rumors, but I don't really know what has transpired thus far. Things were communicated to us, and then not too long after, the opposite was communicated to us. Okay, next slide. So why this matters, definitely staff reported increased anxiety and distractions, decreased productivity, erosion of trust and leadership. Employees noted that they feel unsure, should they seek other employment, should they stay engaged, should they continue building their lives in this community, buying property, etc. Okay, next slide. In regards to processes and responsibilities, staff reported that roles and reporting structures are unclear. There were lots of questions around new roles versus reapplying for existing roles, impacts on middle management, roles that don't fit neatly into one category. There were a lot of staff who attended the sessions who were not parts specifically in the units, but the work that they do, like maybe it's 40% finance and 50% HR. There were lots of questions around that topic as well. Okay, next slide. Why this matters is because employees cannot plan their career paths. There's confusion around ownership of work, risk of disengagement, and higher than expected turnover, concerns about loss of role variety and job satisfaction. There were lots of staff who noted that they feared losing things that they really enjoyed about their current roles. Okay, next slide. In regards to workflow, we heard that anticipated short-term slowdowns is definitely something staff noted. Concerns about handoffs between centralized and local teams, lack of defined workflow, no clear service expectations, turnaround times, ownership, a fear of increased burden on faculty and students. Okay, next slide. And this matters because staff worry about potential bottlenecks and inefficiencies, reduced service quality and responsiveness, risk of duplicative or unnecessary work, and the impact on the university mission delivery. Okay, next slide. The current gaps, what we heard were specific categories, engagement gaps. Staff feel informed but not involved. Information gaps, no detailed level plans, limited visibility into progress. Support gaps, no clear training or transition support has been shared. Trust gaps, job security concerns, and low confidence and responsiveness. Okay, next slide. And this matters because there are morale and retention risks, reduced productivity due to uncertainty, long-term cultural impact, and misalignment between leadership intent and staff experience. Okay, next slide. So the next steps for us, the planning committee did meet. We decided to continue to host a few sessions over the summer. They will be virtual as opposed to hosting in-person sessions, just because I feel like that will, and the committee, we felt like it would provide some accommodations to people who may want to attend virtually. And it was, more people could engage because there's the chat, and even if you couldn't get what you needed to say out, you could write it in the chat. So, and we're going to continue to advocate on behalf of staff by elevating your concerns to the Service First office. All right, and I think that sums up the report out from April sessions. So at this time, I'm going to pass it back to you, Rebecca.
You want to take questions? Does anyone have any questions for Natiaya? Oh, Sarah does. Sarah Green.
Not a question, but I just want to shout out again, Natiaya. This is a lot of work, multiple sessions, the organizing, the planning, the summary work. So we did notice differences between the comms and marketing listening sessions and the research, HR, and finance listening sessions. And I just want to shout out Natiaya and everybody on the listening sessions committee, because the number of people that keep showing up makes it clear that this is important and people are engaged. And as we mentioned last time, super passionate about Carolina and they want to stay here. And so thank you for putting this together. Thank you for advocating for all employees.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I want to second that, even though it's not a motion, because it was a lot of work for the team, but especially for Natiaya. Even in her role as vice chair, I'm very appreciative of the thoughtfulness that was put into this by everybody, including the attendees, of course. And it is coming to a crescendo at, of course, this busy time of year. So I am looking forward to more of the listening sessions, and I'm thankful we're going to be able to continue this as we move forward, because now we're going to collect not just thoughts about what's going to happen, but information about what is unfolding.
All right. I believe we have our next guest here. We have some area-specific updates. I believe Beth Keith, Senior Associate Vice Chancellor for University Communications and Marketing, is here. I'm not sure, online or in person? She is online, okay. And then we also have Vice Chancellor for IT and our CEO, Michael Barker. So I'm going to turn the stage, if you will, over to them for area-specific updates. Whomever of you wishes to go first.
I'll go first. Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I have the pleasure of knowing a lot of you, but my name is Beth Keith. I'm a Senior Associate Vice Chancellor in University Communications and Marketing. I am the functional lead for the Comms and Marketing Service First task force as well. I joined during last meeting with Scott to answer questions about comms and marketing. So I'll just keep mine brief. We are in the implementation phase of our phase 1 of the restructure for communications and marketing. So a few things that we're in the middle of right now. Our university development comms and marketing team is moving over and joining UCM as of June 1st. And those people are joining us in HR, in reporting, as well as physically in our office. And we are looking forward to blending our two teams and working together closer. We are, as we've discussed with the model, there are some people from campus units who are joining UCM as well. They will be joining UCM through HR reporting, so reporting up into a manager in UCM on June 1st. However, we are transitioning their work, their assignments and their workloads slower. So they will continue to do the work that they currently do, and they will continue to report into their current units physically after June 1st, and we are going to have several months of transition there. What we'll be doing in that transition period is two things. One is a strategic planning sessions with the deans and communicators. We've started those with research and with development, and we'll be having those with all of the schools and units over the course of the next several months to identify their strategic priorities for communications and marketing, their audiences, and where they align with the university. And then on the other side, our managers in UCM will be having ongoing conversations with those employees who are joining us and their current managers to continue to talk about skills, strengths, goals, and where we can transition their assignments over the course of this. So a lot of work is still continuing, a lot of decisions. And I just wanted to, again, reiterate that this is phase 1, where we've been working with the schools and major units. We will have a second phase for secondary units, which is centers, institutes, academic departments, and auxiliaries. We will start looking at those and creating a model over the summer. So I'll hand it over to Mike, and then happy to answer any questions after he's finished.
I just sent a request for sharing. I have a couple quick slides to show. There we go. Thank you.
There you go.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show what we have asked for from the units that are envisioned to comprise shared service groups, and then also from the units that are construed as self-serve units. So far as process goes, what we have been doing there's been talk about HR evaluation and things like that. The only area that we have been down the path on with that is the administrative shared service group. So that includes, teams that roll up to the chancellor, the provost, or the vice chancellor for finance and operations. And the reason for being a step ahead there is because, the steering committee oversees those areas. And so it was a reasonable place to begin and to start some analysis. Where that is we found that we needed to engage with the leaders, the IT leaders of those units, in addition to what was envisioned as the HR evaluation, in order to come to a better understanding of what the operational and situational facts are. The fact is, to understand what the IT workforce does, they're IT classified people that do things that are sort of general purpose IT service provider work. But then there are IT people who do various and sundry things, some of which is not IT, some of which is very context specific within a research program, a clinical context, a public service context, or some really specific business need that's, unique and special in some way. And while looking at position descriptions is a helpful thing, position descriptions are point in time artifacts in setting up a position, in doing changes of duties, salary increases, whatever those things might be. So while they're useful, they don't quite capture what the operational facts are. So we're a little farther along there because we've been engaged with those units. But what I've done with the units outside of that is I've begun this background information gathering exercise, first expressing it to the deans, and now a step down with the leaders that will engage to understand the situational facts. So that's both for the self-serve units and the units that are envisioned to be in shared service groups. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that we have a base level understanding, that we can compose a conception of the overall IT activity, both of the workforce and in relation to the actual work of what IT is across campus. So in my view, where we are is this has got us moving in the necessary discovery phases. And this is the background information that I expect every unit, whether self-serve, shared service group, or otherwise, to produce and to have in order to comprehend what the IT activity is from the operational facts. So one is scoped to the information technology teams. What's the actual budget to actuals, personnel and non-personnel for the prior fiscal year, the present fiscal year? That's scoped to the IT teams in a unit. Number 2 and number 3, these should make sense, I hope. We also need to have visibility to what the software and services portfolio is, the renewal dates, the amounts, whether it's being processed by an IT team or whether it's being processed outside of an IT team. There's lots of IT purchasing that happens outside of IT teams for completely sensible reasons, because that application or that service is localized to that unit and maybe they don't need IT support for it. But sometimes IT purchases happen outside of that substantial IT software or service and they need support from the IT unit. We need to uncover that. And we need to know sort of how that workload is carried out for the units. And that's for the entire unit. The hardware capital life cycle plan, what do we spend on hardware? That obviously has a significant impact on the workloads of IT staff. That's an indicator, a really good indicator of what that sort of some of the end user productivity support happens to be. The hardware lifecycle management practices in units varies. Some plan for it in some ways, some in other ways, and they deal with stuff in an opportunistic fashion. That's also scoped to the entire unit in order to understand that activity ultimately in relationship to the IT teams and the other IT classified people across the unit. The last is to actually understand the organizational roles of the IT classified positions. So part of what I think this effort has made clear is we need a conception of what an IT service provider is and what sort of general IT work, general purpose IT functions are, the tasks that comprise that. And we need to understand the extent to which those occur in the IT teams, as opposed to they're mixed in with what I call IT that happens at the edge. So it's not part of an IT team, an IT service provider within a unit. We need to understand how that lays out. And this is so that we have visibility, so that we understand it, but it's also so that we can comprehend where IT classified positions are being used for things that are kind of not IT, or they're only partially IT. And we can actually characterize that. Because if you just look at somebody that's in a job category IT, and a very small amount of their work is IT, then that miscounts. The fact that many of us use Microsoft Word or use email or use a software application doesn't make us IT professionals and IT workers. Just like there are some people in IT classified positions that use software in doing work, that doesn't make them part of an IT service provider. And we need to understand these distinctions. So we're trying to make sense out of how that lays across campus. And I've asked each unit to also provide a description of how they decide on whether to place a position with an IT team or outside of an IT team. Because ultimately, it will help us all if we have a conception of these are the kinds of roles and functions that really kind of should belong in an IT team as opposed to ones that sort of happen at the edge. So this is what we're doing. This is what we're gathering. We're further along in this with the administrative shared service group, and we have some analyses back, and we're starting to discuss that with at least the leaders and the top-down IT sort of leadership and whatnot, because we want to get it closer to what the real work is, right? And we've just begun it over the past month and a half or so with the units outside of that admin shared services group. Part of what's been very important to me is to make sure that we approach these groups, these leaders, as stakeholders. It does the university no good if somehow, and it does me no good too, and also if we go about things and IT stops working. So everybody's interests aligns in getting this background information so that we understand one another as to what the operations are, what it is that are the facts, so that we can proceed in a cogent fashion. I want to spend just a minute on KPIs and metrics. This is really important stuff too, and I appreciate Service First emphasizing the significance of KPIs and metrics. But I also want to point out that the KPIs and metrics on organizational behaviors in IT, for IT professionals, IT service provider teams, we got things in the works and there's a bunch of stuff that makes sense. So this falls out of, in some way, just cogent kind of routine practice of what people do. So for those of you or people that are in IT teams, you know, it ought to be the case, and we often do, at least in some areas, we have senses of overall, a process for gathering overall customer satisfaction. Uptime, that's one of the standard conceptions of IT performance. You've heard of the 4 nines, 5 nines, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing. That's just the lingua franca of IT professionals. Incident response time and things like that. That again is just, these are sort of just professionalism in the conduct and monitoring of your own organizational functions. So this should not be something that is, you know, bizarre or outlandish. And these should be fairly broad organizational synthetic metrics, not down into, you know, specific operating lines. On quality, risk, and compliance, the information security program, Paul Rivers is Chief Information Security Officer. He and I have briefed the Board of Trustees, the leadership, and we've engaged with and created, you know, a program for delegated security authorities and identified 4 key controls and are working with via the delegated security authorities to establish the metrics that are associated with those 4 key controls. And we've got to make sure that that first we should take credit for the things that we're doing, but also we need to make sure that the metrics that align to quality, risk, and compliance in Service First are the ones that we have leadership, executive, and a risk-based interest in. So these have to be on the same page. And the good news is we have a program that's moving that along. The last one, this is one that's going to be comparatively new, I think. Financial value and productivity. And this is per shared service group or campus unit. And what I want you to notice here is the place to start with this, it's derived from the background information. So the background information is what every leader or manager or unit leader that has an IT unit and an IT function, really needs to know in order to be able to run IT in some way that includes awareness. And this stuff follows from it. Annual information technology, classified personnel expenditure as a percentage of total personnel expenditure, non-personnel information technology expenditure as a percentage of total non-personnel expenditure, software service renewal rate increases, capital expenditure increases. And part of what we need to do as an institution is have guidance on what we're counting here so that the metrics are valid over time. We're counting the same things as we proceed through time, because that's the only way we will know whether we're measuring the same things and what our performance is. So that's what the KPI and metric picture is from my perspective. This is the place we start. Now, of course, in due course, we can improve granularity as appropriate, but we need to be careful not to get into the telemetry that is the delivery of the services themselves. These need to be organizationally scoped metrics, in my view. So this is my last slide that I'm about to get to. This, to me, is the core of how I look at the service first effort with respect to IT. And what we have to establish is visibility. We don't have good visibility right now. We can have visibility at rolled up institutional figures at a high level of abstraction. That obscures relevant details. We also have visibility at the transactional level by the actual transactions or tickets and things like that. But there's an enormous gap between those things. If you look at the transactions, the actuals, a lot of stuff gets bought through resellers, through vendor partners and things like that. And you don't actually even know from the transaction what software or service is being bought. You have to trace that up somewhere into the operating facts. So we have visibility at a large level of abstraction, and we have visibility at incredible granularity. But in order to comprehend what's going on and be able to say what the IT functions are doing, both individually in units or as grouped entities, but also as an institution, we have to have a comprehension in that middle. That's visibility. If we do that with one another, like in shared service groups or individually with the self-serve entities, we create coordination. And if you do that on a routine basis and you develop approaches to do that as it falls out of your operations, that entails oversight. You have a better understanding of what's happening. You can precisely characterize what the IT service providers are doing, why somebody might be in an IT classified position but not be doing IT work or something else like that. And that's when we start to be able to be responsive. The way it is right now, if somebody asks the question, what is the IT workforce doing? It's like, it's hard to tell. That's unacceptable. Notice on this slide, I have not said that achieving visibility or coordination or oversight requires organizational change. It can be the case that, as a matter of fact, the only way to achieve it is organizational change. It's possible that the only way to achieve that, to achieve visibility, is by management structural change and aligning teams and whatnot. But that's not a necessity. We can accomplish these goals through collaboration and coordination. And it's the only way that we achieve it by organizational change or by coordination, federations of opportunities, is by actually doing the background information that we've got everybody working on now. So that's where we are with IT. I hope that's helpful. I'm going to stop the share. And that's sort of the fact of the matter picture as I see it. I hope that's helpful.
Great, thank you so much. Sarah, I think you had your hand up a little bit earlier. I'll go ahead and start with you for questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. I've got questions for Beth, Keith, and I've also got questions for Mike Barker. I'll start with Beth, just because you were the first one to present. Thank you for coming and sharing where you all are in your transition. Two questions. One kind of inspired by something that was brought up earlier by Keith, which is why the choice to bring people who were working remotely into in-person before we have a plan for location and understanding and acknowledging the challenges with parking and space and all of these. And the Chancellor having mentioned there is a plan to, but not currently an existing understanding of how to best utilize space. Why was that decision made? And then second, you shared in an email that, well, an email was shared. I don't know that it came directly from you, but that there's a discovery phase that will be happening. You kind of alluded to it with your the managers exploring goals. Could you share more about how that staff input is going to impact the trajectory of what you all put in place?
Sure. Thank you. And I can't see you, but good to hear from you, Sarah. First, a clarification on the returning to the office. There's University Development, Comms and Marketing is joining UCM on June 1st, and they are joining physically. They are the group, it's about 12 people who will be coming and physically joining our space on Franklin Street. So we do have office space for them, and we are working on storage and all of that stuff. So the reason that we have asked them to go ahead and come in, our UCM team, I think for over the last 2 years, maybe a little longer, we've been 4-1. So we have 4 days in the office and 1 day working from home. And so because they are physically joining us, we have asked them to go by the same hybrid schedule that we do. So you're correct in that the other people who are joining, we do not have space for them, and we're still determining how to have space for a larger department. And that is why they are going to continue to physically report into the units that they've been working. And we've also let them know that whatever hybrid schedule they have had, they can continue. So that even though they are both joining in some ways on June 1st, that's why there's a difference between the two. And then the second, the discovery phase. So I think there's two phases and two parts of the phase, the discovery phase, when we're talking about the scope of work that an individual is working on and what UCM, the central resources will provide, and then what we're going to have the units handle. And for communications and marketing, and I've said this before to a lot of people, like, we are different than HR and finance. When you think of HR, you have to do benefits. You have to have, the I-9s done. You have to have certain forms done every year. And so the scope is not as flexible or able to grow or shrink than it is for comms and marketing. Comms and marketing is based on the strategic priorities of the university and then also of that school and unit. We've had a lot of conversations with deans around the schools that, rankings are their top priority, or enrollment is their top priority, or alumni engagement is their top priority. And those are different throughout. So those conversations will happen in the strategic whiteboard sessions where we are starting to rank what they are and what those strategic priorities are. And then on the other side, the conversations that the new managers will have with the current managers is really finding out what those day-to-day tasks are that the people who will be joining UCM are doing, and really what they would like to grow into. Are there things that they've been doing? The people who are joining UCM likely have been doing a lot of things, because the people in our communications and marketing people in schools and units are very small teams and have to do a lot of different things across the board to support it. And they are joining more specialized teams, photography, videography, graphic design. And so finding out what those strengths are within what they've been doing a lot of is really important. The change here, since we were last talking, is that we were trying to move people over and have those conversations at the same time. And after speaking to a lot of people in our campus units, we decided to slow the timeline so that we can have the conversations and better make decisions.
Thank you. And I'll just follow up with, that's a relief for a lot of people to hear that you all are taking the time to do this with intentionality and really valuing the feedback of boots on the ground employees. So thank you for that clarity.
Sure.
Did you have a question for, okay. Annetta?
Thank you both for your presentations. I did have a question about one of the IT slides that was shown earlier, and specifically the one about KPIs and metrics. So it appears that that slide is very specific to IT, but in terms of this entire Service First project, is the steering committee or the work groups, are they using a similar template to look at all services across the campus? And because I'm just concerned that KPIs and metrics, they're taking a 30,000 look at, at the work itself, but I'm not sure that how much it involves people on the ground and really talking to them about their day-to-day activities. So my question is this template or lens also being used across campus, across units as you evaluate, how efficient our work is?
So can I start with a question for you? I mean, I'm going to answer as best I can, but do you think that point of departure from your perspective makes sense for IT that I've described?
Me personally, I do think it's important for a unit or a department, an area like IT, to look at its assets, look at what it currently has, and then be able to rationalize to the leadership how you use the materials. I'm just, like I said, it was very.
I mean, what I'm getting at is the metrics, the sort of approach to the metrics. Did that make sense for IT? I'll come back. I'm just interested in feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because
So
what
I'm
I'm
not
trying to get at there is sort of organizational behaviors. I think it's a mistake for the behavior of an organizational metric to drill down into the level of, say, an individual person's performance. That to me is a matter for their manager, the employee, to assess their individual performance. So there's a difference in metrics for an organizational behavior and keeping track of individuals. Those are different things in my view. So what I'm trying to get at with the metrics is an overall organizational picture. That's what's been so hard to gather at the university in many ways. So I was just curious if that made sense. I take it that you probably are in a staff level position, or other folks are, and I'm honestly curious if that makes sense, because it's made sense to me. It's made sense to others that I've talked to. And I'm just interested if it makes sense to you, to be candid. And then I'll try to answer the questions.
So I am a staff person. I'm not an IT specialist.
Okay.
But when I looked at it, like I said, it certainly made sense that you all would be charged with taking this type of inventory. But again, my question was more around
Service first.
How involved were the IT people themselves in responding to these things? And so that was my concern, is that, I think even without getting down to the granular level, the university can evaluate and determine what its assets are in terms of software and hardware, because you all made the purchases, you set up the the agreements and things like that, but it really takes conversations with the people on the ground to understand how it's being utilized. And so that's the part that I was curious about. And then in addition to that, is this same template being used across the other service areas to make these types of assessments? So just curious about that.
I've shared my conception of the starting point for metrics with the service first teams, and then also, of course, with the leaders and the IT, the folks that are directing IT in campus units. What I'm trying to get are organizational behaviors here that have to do with the management of IT. So the initial point of engagement is, does an IT organization need to keep up with customer satisfaction? Does it need to keep up with uptime and things like that? And I haven't individually talked to, campus unit IT staff, but what I believe is the case is that the IT leaders, the IT staff across campus, these metrics that I've outlined as organizational metrics resonate with them when I've had those discussions. So I'll just start there. And I do also want to emphasize that these are organizational metrics. They're not, I absolutely do not intend them. And I think it's a mistake to intend organizational metrics to get down to the performance or behavior of individuals or even individual service functions in some way. They're organizational level. I think that's a different thing. So far as the IT, so far as metrics in other areas, I'm not, the other functional leads or the service first core group could probably speak best to that. They're doing more gathering from the other functional areas. I have been so focused on IT that I can't really speak to what the sort of schemas that others are adopting. I've engaged with the IT leaders across campus in order to say this is what seems like a cogent starting point, and they have seemed to agree is all I can say there. So I can't really answer the other parts of the question. I would hope that I think that I think that it's an iterative process with metrics too, and we end up getting at a reflective equilibrium. I just think that this is the cogent place to start. I would expect that Service First and the other functional leaders would have some kind of similar organizational level views of things, but I'm glad that that's stuff that my job is the IT stuff. So there you have it.
And Mike is accurate. Just to answer the question specifically on the other functional areas. If you think back to the early fall, when the original task forces were getting set up, and the core initial charge for them was based off of activities that are within job descriptions that were pulled centrally. What activities should stay in a unit? What activities could be shared? What activities could be centralized? From that list, that's when internally my team started looking at what are we doing across campus in terms of measuring metrics, whether it's the high organizational level or at the individual level. And what we found is there wasn't much being done, or it was just inconsistent. And so if you think back to the report outs here around the work stream focused on KPIs and metrics, I think November's presentation, December's presentation, a lot of what Mike had for IT was in a subset of what we pulled from other peers doing this. And so you should anticipate where Mike has pre-selected the IT high-level ones. UCM is going through a similar activity. And then the other areas, HR, finance, research, administration, would have those initial KPIs and metrics that we would be measuring centrally. The goal of Service First throughout the entire time for this work stream has been to establish a data-driven culture. That's one element of it. And so the first baseline, because we don't have baseline information, is part of my team pulling that together right now and trying to create a quarter baseline for service across the functional areas. And we'll use this forum as just like what Mike presented here, the high level ones, but as we move forward, what's actually the data happening, and they would be summarized by the grouping. So you have the self-service view at the individual unit level. We'll have the roll-up grouping views down to the individual unit level. The same for the admin grouping. So that's what you should anticipate here. And then in the monthly updates as we get that dashboard to create that environment.
All right, and I know Michael Barker had to leave. He has another meeting at 10:30. Do I have any additional questions for Beth Keith before we move on to the next item on our agenda? All right, thank you, Beth, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. All right, Scott, if you want to come on down and join me, we'll just.
Rebecca, you're super far away. I can't hear you.
I'm here. All right. And I'm not sure I actually sent you the questions because yesterday was day 9 of exams and I don't remember what I did yesterday. So
I have to sit this time?
yes, you get to
Okay.
sit this time.
All right.
We'll just have a nice conversation. The hot seat. Yeah, I'm putting you on the hot seat. Love
They
it.
set up in here. Okay. All right, I'll make this work.
All right, so I wanted to do something just a little bit different. Some of these are questions that we've pulled from the listening sessions that have, similar to the themes that Natiaya presented, but just kind of talking a little bit more directly about the questions that keep kind of bubbling up to the surface during the sessions. And some of these you've likely answered when folks have come to your office hours or emailed you directly. One of the things I think is that, we've heard that staff understand the why behind Service First, but they are struggling with the how. And I think having Beth and Michael here was super helpful because we got a lot more detail about how they're approaching it in those two particular areas. But, staff are wanting to, struggling with the how and what it means for them on an individual level. And I think that speaks to the anxiety and concerns that folks have. So the questions that I've pulled today are focused on kind of helping close that gap with some clarity, timeliness, and actionable information. The first question that I've got is, could you please clarify how the schools and divisions designated as self-service are expected to contribute to the Board of Trustees' $25 million administrative cost savings target as compared to those that are part of the Service First side of the house?
So self-service is totally in scope, even for the labor side of that goal for the $25 million. Part of what we're doing internally right now is how do you allocate targets for that 25 million? And, we're doing that based off of the financial information that we've got, where FTE spend is currently, and then we are going to release, as you all know, that Board of Trustees resolution. The wording on the expectation for June 30th of this year is to have a plan for what will happen, not everything being implemented. And so one of the things Nate and I are working on is, what is that cost allocation? As you all are aware, the self-service in terms of the operating expenses across those units, it's about 53% of the university operations. And so they will be in scope. The expectation on that 25 million is the labor component. We also feel like in the meetings we've had with the self-service unit deans and leads, there's also an opportunity on the non-labor side, which Mike kind of went into the IT piece. So in short, they're in scope. We'll be giving specific targets to units and the functional area leads that we've got to be able to, as the HR evaluation work stream. And so it was good to have Mike and Beth here today because in the last few months, when I've been articulating the HR evaluation work stream, that detail is forthcoming. You're starting to see that, right? So on the UCM side, it was the first functional area. The IT group, to break it apart, we went with the administrative grouping. And then over the course of May, we should start launching the HR evaluation for research administration and finance procurement and potentially HR. And so that's staggering. I had a slide prepared for today that was responsive to calendaring out what that will look like from what we've been talking about, the HR evaluation process, the unit feedback period of time, and then that ramp up implementation phase, which we're in right now with UCM with that target of June 1. All those dates will fluctuate. But I think we're getting that traction of where we as a university opted to do the HR evaluation internally versus what many of our peers, they'll bring in a third party, that they do it at a high level. This is what should happen. And there aren't those conversations that you heard Beth as the functional area lead for UCM, Vice Chancellor Barker for IT, and then for HR would be Linc Butler, who you all know. Finance would be Lindsay Farling, Carly Perrin, and Colette Brown. And then research administration would be Andy Johns. And so as much as I know that you like hearing from me each month, which I do enjoy, and I appreciate always feeling welcome here, that those individual leaders, much like what you saw here, will continue to come to the employee forum to provide those functional area updates.
So for the service area, or like say School of Medicine, where they are not part of, they're kind of set aside, if you will, and are doing their own things. How are they contributing specifically to that? How are we calculating how they're contributing to that $25 million in administrative savings?
Well, it's like I previously mentioned, the overall operating expense of the School of Medicine, if you look at it as a total pie, what percent would be allocated as a target to the School of Medicine?
As target for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then all of those leads are aware of that. I mean, consistently, even when the resolution was passed at the dean's level or the vice chancellor's level, there's been a commitment to figure out, even though they're not necessarily organizationally restructuring, that it could happen. I will give kudos to School of Medicine. If you've been around here for a while, they've progressed with shared services, and they'll be the first to say they're not perfect, but also at the same time, in terms of consistency across all of those functional areas, more or less, they've made some huge strides over the last 10 years. And there's a lot of lessons learned that actually we'll be pulling into some of the functional areas as we go across campus.
In the past year, 2 years, there's been a lot, and this is a very different question, a lot of shifting or opportunities for folks if they chose to shift from SHRA to EHRA. And we've had several questions come up that as we move through service first and jobs change and people are reassigned or have to reapply, and have new roles, are individuals going to be required to shift to an EHRA non-faculty role from an SHRA as part of this transition?
That has not come up as a expectation of if people move around. What you saw from UCM and what Beth articulated, and even what Mike was articulating, the frontline staff members shifting is not necessarily going to happen with regard to location or changes in services. Now that could evolve down the line. I would never say that nothing would change, but at the leadership level, that to me, when you think about our directors, executive directors, assistant deans, associate deans, this HR evaluation for those other functional areas, that is consistently been what we've been articulating would be, I think, the most impacted.
And then I know we're kind of short on time, but I do have two other questions. Are you getting feedback or input from faculty and researchers? And if not, what plans are in place to seek that feedback?
So we went to the faculty council back in the fall, and we offered to come to everyone, right? So we haven't been invited back. And I don't think that's purposeful. So on our team, we actually reached out after this last employee forum because that question came up. And I was hoping to be able to give a service first update to the broader faculty at the meeting a few weeks ago. But the agenda was full. And so the intent is to try to get in that forum. We haven't created any large listening sessions beyond what you all have created for staff. There hasn't been, and there's not right now a plan for that type of faculty engagement at this point.
Thank you. And then my last question for today, and of course we'll have more questions later. Where did it go? Hello. It was there. Did I delete it? That's bizarre. It was highlighted. Did you delete it? Oh. That's okay. Um, 1 second,
Sarah, would you like to read it?
go for it.
Oh, Scott, you know, I would love to read it.
All right.
She may have, sorry.
No, you're fine. You want to go ahead? Okay. What accountability measures are being put in place to ensure that staff questions receive responses, and within what time frame? Are there plans to post these questions with the answers on the Service First website? And that partly comes from the fact that you host the office hours, but we don't necessarily, not all of us are in those office hours or see the questions and the answers. And so curious how that is going to be shared.
That's a good question. On the email address, we still get occasional email direct to Service First email. And our goal is to respond to that within 5 to 7 business days directly. We were not doing that when we first started in July and August. And part of that was just bandwidth. But now at this point, I feel like the backlog of questions we've gone back and addressed. Anything proactively moving forward through that medium will continue to be 5 to 7 business days. The town halls thus far have been a work in progress, right? The first one, wasn't sure if anybody would show up, and then we spent 75 minutes with questions. And I was flying solo and was not taking good notes because I was out of breath answering questions. And then the next one, we had questions that were coming in, either that y'all provided, that we had pre-templated responses to, but we didn't post that online, which we can.
Yeah, it'd be great to have that on your website.
No, and so, that is no problem. So as we gear up, I think for the one in 2 weeks, May 11th, I think, we can do that. And we can do the same for, at a minimum, the April meeting that we had based off the questions that were already prepped, and just create a different section for office hour discussion summaries.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
For people that can't make it. But yeah, that's a great recommendation.
Thank you. That's all that I have today. I know that we have other questions, but those are the ones I wanted to jump on for today. Thank you I know this has been a very long year and there's been a lot going on. And I'm looking forward to continuing to pepper you with questions over the next year as we continue to move through. We do have a meeting in June, but that is our celebration meeting. So we're going to spend more time celebrating our staff. But in August, I'll keep you posted as to how we plan to move forward.
Yeah, for those that are staying on or rolling off, I really have appreciated since taking this role back in May of last year that I was invited here. And I know it's been rough, and it will consistently be, there's uncertainty there. But I appreciate you all, whether you wanted me to come or not, inviting me and making me feel welcome has been much appreciated. It has been a really good partnership that really helped us, where we didn't have to recreate forums like this or stack. And then when you guys launched launched the listening sessions, it was perfect timing, because we wanted that feedback as well, which I don't think I have the feedback that you presented today. Do I have those slides yet? Yeah, so I don't have those compared to the other ones, and we are going to be responsive, as we said, directly to each of those. I was hoping we would do that in June, but we most likely will probably respond to those and embed those in a monthly message, since people are kind of peeling out of here in different times for summer, and since employee forum's not in June, but we know we own that, and we'll do the same for these slides and try to communicate to campus at least via a message online, and then we can pick back up at the next employee forum for those specifically.
Because I know this summer that even though that we are going to have, our meetings will be as frequent, a lot of not a lot, but there will be implementation pieces happening. So there will be a lot happening with Service First over the summer. And I think there will be continued questions.
Yep. Thank you.
Elizabeth, did you want to?
And thank you for being here, Scott. We do appreciate your presence. Just because we're doing fun things in June doesn't mean that you can't provide us with updated information. In fact, we look forward to it. And I'm really glad to hear the word responsiveness and what the words you're using with us today. Can we make sure that that responsiveness has as much specific response to the questions and not just, yes, we talked to you about this at this point in time again?
Yeah.
Because we're starting to pull up real themes that really they need real context within the responses. So this isn't a question necessarily to open up more discussion. We just really look forward to hearing from you again in June, whether it's at the meeting or not.
10-4.
Thank you.
Happen. No, thank you for that. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. And do I have a Linc Butler online?
You certainly do. Hello, everyone.
Excellent. Then I will turn this over to you because I know you have a couple of updates for us.
Yeah, we do, and I'll keep it brief because I know we're up against it on time. And thanks so much for the flexibility around my schedule this morning to move us around on the agenda. Really appreciate it. I do have a couple of my team members here that I'm going to turn it over to in a minute. But first up, just want everybody to be aware, of course, Workwell is coming out a little bit later today. There's a lot of really great information in there, in particular about state service recognition. We have 2,230 employees who are reaching milestone years of service this year, anywhere from 5 through 55 years of service, which is pretty incredible. We have 310 who are reaching 20 years of service. And we'll put a link in the chat, which you'll also see in Workwell, where you can look at the list of honorees. If you want to take a look at that, you can. In addition to that, just one update. We are going to be moving the HR website to a new platform, going live on Monday, May 18th. It's going to have the same website address. This is in a lot of the work that's going on across campus around accessibility and making sure that we're in compliance with those accessibility standards. While the website link is the same, if you bookmark the site, there's a slight chance that your bookmark may not work. So if you're trying to get to the HR website, you can still go to the hr.unc.edu when it goes live on the 18th. And those are some of the big things. Again, a lot of good stuff is going to be in Workwell. Wanted to address the question that came up with Scott around SHRA to EHRA conversion. The mechanics of that are that if a position is wage hour exempt, meaning not an hourly position, and it becomes vacant, or if it's established and it's exempt, it must be as an EHRA position. So if people are applying for new roles that are maybe being established and posted for as part of Service First, and it's an exempt position, it would be an EHRA position. As the potential for people to move, that wouldn't automatically drive a conversion. I think, and it would depend on if the role changes, that changes it then from non-exempt to exempt. There might be a situation there where we have to address a conversion. But for the most part, that decision still lies with the individual employee. So again, while there may be some nuances with that, for the most part, I think it's more about what is the role? Is it being posted, for example, for recruitment? And is it exempt? Then it must be EHRA. Outside of that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen Guerra, who has some updates from the organizational professional development team. And she's also has with her Jessica Procel for a quick update on performance management. Before we then close out, of course, with Jessica Pyjas with some wellness, total well-being updates. So Kathleen, it's all you.
Great. Thanks so much, Linc. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Kathleen Guerra, and I'm here, as Linc said, with Jessica Procel to share some updates from organization and professional development. Just going to dive right in because we have a lot to share. I wanted to first share with you how we are expanding our course offerings. We have several new courses that you can see on the left of the slide, including exceptional onboarding for managers to help create a great onboarding experience for new employees. A newest course, Moving from Peer to Manager, which is appropriate both for new managers as well as those considering a move into management. Crucial Conversations, and a new course on guiding probationary employees, which is coming soon. And then additionally, we have several courses under development. Many of you are familiar with our Best Program for Managers, which we are updating and revising. We also have 2 new courses that we're developing thanks to our ULead project team who started this work, Storytelling Basics and the Story Behind the Data. Additionally, we're updating our Running Effective Meetings course, and we're making significant changes to our Generations training courses to provide more practical hands-on application. And lastly, we are also revising our HR rep onboarding program. I also wanted to share some opportunities for you to invest in your growth over the coming months. We have several courses scheduled in May and June. Just a couple things that I'll highlight really quickly. We have our Introduction to MBTI in May, along with Growing Your Career at Carolina. I won't list all of the courses, but I will just focus on the fact that we also have Moving from Peer to Manager launching in May. In June, we have several courses including Fostering Psychological Safety on Teams, Conflict Management, Presentations That Pop, and more. So a lot of different offerings scheduled in May and June that I wanted to make you aware of, and you can register using the QR code on the slide or directly through Carolina Talent. And then finally, I just want to highlight some great work that has been done by our U-Lead project teams this year. Our U-Lead project teams focused on some real challenges affecting higher education as part of their work, including topics like staff burnout, leadership resiliency, and more. And they came up with some very practical application-based recommendations related to those challenges, including a Wellbeing mini grant program, a resiliency assessment and toolkit, and several other recommendations and proposals that are really impactful to UNC. I wanted to encourage you all. I think you'll be really inspired by their recommendations and their work. And this isn't just theoretical. Several departments are already leaning in to continue this work and bring it to life on an ongoing basis. So I would encourage you to take a moment and take a look at those recommendations, and you can take a look at the detailed project plans again using the QR code on the slide. And now I'm going to shift this over to Jessica Procel to take us home with performance management.
And do you mind sending that those slides our way, and I'll include those?
You got it. No problem.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I also just dropped the link for the U-Lead projects on the chat.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Jessica Procel, the Talent Management Program Manager, and I'm just going to be walking you through some quick updates on how to make the most of the performance season, at least the month and a half we have left. Next slide, please. So let's just quickly look at where we are in the season right now. May is really the time for employees and managers to come together and build goals collaboratively. So this means just ensuring that you're having real conversations, aligning on priorities, sharing perspectives, and shaping those goals together to ensure that they're clear, relevant, and meaningful. Although June 10th is our deadline, that doesn't mean that that's the last time that goals are going to be talked about. So make sure that throughout the year, you're revisiting, reviewing, updating. Goals are dynamic, and we know that priorities shift. So they should be updated, again, at least on a quarterly basis, be having those conversations to ensure everything is up to date and making the formal year-end, summarizing it and making it less administrative. And to help just make that process easier and practical, we're offering our goal setting workshops. Next slide, please. This session, we're going to be focusing on building clear, purposeful goals using the SMART framework, also strengthening how you approach these conversations with your manager. This workshop is open for employees and managers, and we still have seats available. So please, I encourage you to register in Carolina Talent. We'll also drop the link in the chat, or if you have your phone out, you can scan that QR code. Next slide, please. And last but not least, beyond those workshops, we continuously update our curated performance playlist in Carolina Talent. Again, we have one for employees and managers, and our playlist has as well courses that are being delivered by my team. So some of the courses that Kathleen showed us on the previous slide, we have added them to the playlist as they are to support your performance and development year-round. That is all I have for you today. If there are any questions at any time, please feel free to email me at performance_management@unc.edu.
And I do have a question for you here in the room. Sarah?
This is actually not, well, either you or Kathleen could answer this question. But my question is, I love the new offerings. I love seeing the way that we are trying to support people's growth and flex with the changing times. To that end, I'm wondering if there is any plan to offer a course in supporting neurodiverse employees.
We don't have one scheduled right now, but that's something I'll take away and we'll take a look at that. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you. Teresa?
Hi, this is Teresa Silsby from ITS. Hi, Kathleen and
Hey,
Jessica.
Teresa.
Kathleen, I was just wanting to reach out to you. We had a person reach out to us on the desk asking about guidance for a new manager that would be supervising an SHRA employee for the first time. I'm just curious, I saw a lot of your courses and things like that. Do you get into differences in those courses of SHRA and EHRA employees?
We will in the revised program for BEST. So we're looking to really expand BEST to include both SHRA and EHRA in consideration for all types of employees.
Great, thank you. And next time we get the call, I'm just going to send them to your group.
You got it. That sounds great.
Any questions online? All right.
Thanks, all.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. And Jessica, do you have 3 or 4 updates for us? And then I can send out your...
I do. I do not know what's going on with this camera. I am in a different office at the moment. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Excuse the view of me, but good morning, everyone. I wanted to take time to just let you know, yes, there are some really great articles that will be in the Workwell coming out later today. And if you are not aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So more than 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness at some point in their lifetime, and 1 in 20 experience a serious mental illness. This ranges from anxiety disorder, major depression, and co-substance abuse with mental health, with a mental health condition. The rates over the years have increased significantly, largely because mental health has also been impacting our children. From ages 6 to 17, 1 in 7 children will have a mental health disorder. So in the Workwell coming out later today, you will see an article in the wellness section that highlights resources available to you. If you click on that link that I will drop in the chat box before I leave you today, some upcoming trainings in May will be mental health awareness for leaders. That will be next Wednesday, the 6th. Learning to relax the following Wednesday. Responding to narcissism. This one is not a registration through Carolina Talent and is completely confidential. Breathing techniques to relieve stress and improve health at the very end of the month. And then before we meet again at the start of June, there's a session on resiliency, bouncing back after a setback. So know that those are available to you. In addition, you have those mindful meditation sessions that are just 15 minutes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You have the wonderful Heals Care Network accessible to you, which is a one-stop shop of resources for employees and students. Your 24/7 guidance resources support either over the phone or online. And then if you need ongoing support, please do know that the state health plan does cover those benefits. And although there is a copay for counseling, it is still moderately low, ranging from $10 a visit to $15 a visit, depending on what plan you selected at the start of the benefit year. Do know that May 14th, that is a Thursday, it is National Wear Green Day to recognize and draw attention to mental health awareness. And there is a virtual background that will be made available to you in the newsletter article as well. In addition to mental health, and certainly helps improve the culture of your workplace, we will be holding Wellness Champion information sessions beginning this month on the 21st of May. These sessions will review the Wellness Champions program that will launch in the fall, later in August. and there will be 4 throughout the summer, starting in May and going through the end of July. So if you have any questions, want to learn more, and you'll hear from a wellness champion during those sessions, please register to participate in one of those sessions, and that we hope that you can join us in the fall in the Wellness Champions program. And then I'll conclude with some quick perks and discounts. We have wonderful gifting ideas for moms and grads on our Perks Connect and Working Advantage sites, ranging from spa gift cards to flowers and chocolates and more. Yoga Under the Stars will be offered most Wednesdays throughout the month at the Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center. So that's a $30 charge for non-members and $25 for members. There's a brand new gym in Chapel Hill that just opened up by us at AOB. It is called ISI Elite Training. It is on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and they are offering 40% off savings for employees. And then there's a limited time offer, great savings to join the BJ's Wholesale Club if you're not a member, if you're wanting to shop in large quantities. That discount is $15 to join for new members for the year, $50 if you're interested in that cashback plus membership. And that savings goes to the end of July. So those are all on the discount webpage that you do need to use your Onion to log in with, just so that those discounts are exclusive to our Carolina employees. Please let me know if you have any questions. Great seeing you all today.
Thanks so much. All right. Next on our agenda, we've already done our old business because we've already done updates pulled from our consent agenda, so that is taken care of. And new business, just jump to highlights and kudos. I know we already said thank you very much to those who are engaging in the listening sessions and helping out with those. It has been a real group effort, and I really appreciate, I know Natiaya, Sarah, Elizabeth, Natasha, Matt, Renata. I know I'm missing several people there. Who am I missing? Natiaya, Paige, and Tiffany. Thank you all for the work that you've been doing and continue to do for our listening sessions. That is definitely not a small lift. Blood drive, the entire committee was just incredible, and it was a wonderful drive. I'd also like to give a shout out from Julie to the folks who participated in our peer recognition awards, for reading all of the applications and helping make the very difficult decisions of who would be the finalists for those awards. So thanks to Audrey Shore, Alana Potts, Camille Campbell, Nicholas Hannon, Annetta Streeter, Susie Toro, Randall Borer, Drexel Rivers, Dan Basahi, and Stephanie Morales. Thank you to all of you and to Julie and Lisa for leading the way on that. You guys have done an incredible amount of work. So thank you. We do have something new on the agenda that was presented to me a couple of days ago, and it is a proclamation, and it is Proclamation 2601 concerning the university's duty to its staff employees and the absence of an institutional framework to fulfill that duty. Sarah Green has offered to read this to us, so I'll go ahead and pull it up on screen. Give me just a minute. There's a little bit of a delay, but hopefully it'll pop up. There we go.
So this was created through a small committee. This is.
That's here.
You can hear me okay, yeah. And I do just want to kind of highlight that this is the first reading. It does require 2 readings. And if, well, there is a resolution that goes along with this. So if you are interested in edits, revisions, and the representation, just let us know afterwards and we will happily grab you and add you to the group. Okay, so proclamation for the Employee Forum, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, proclamation number 2601, concerning the university's duty to its staff employees and the absence of an institutional framework to fulfill that duty presented 5/1/2026. Whereas it is the mission of the Employee Forum to advocate for and constructively address the challenges, needs, and opportunities of UNC-Chapel Hill staff and to seek to continually improve the quality of life at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill through mutual understanding, recognition of employee contributions, and respect for the worth of the individual. And whereas the Employee Forum represents more than 9,000 staff employees who form the operational core of this university, among them housekeepers and groundskeepers who maintain the physical campus, advisors who guide students through their education, research technicians who support the scientific enterprise, IT professionals who keep systems running, HR generalists who serve the university's workforce, and facilities workers who keep the lights on and the buildings safe. These employees' daily labor makes possible everything this institution claims to stand for. And whereas the university's Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost, in a message published on the Office of the Provost website in April 2026, wrote that the Public Research University's mission depends on, quote, invisible labor, end quote, describing that labor as large lecture halls filled and refilled, grant proposals drafted, revised, rejected, and resurrected, and administrative systems that frustrate even the most patient among us. The Employee Forum recognizes and shares the Provost's commitment to the university's public mission, yet observes that these descriptions attribute labor to the environment rather than to the people performing it. Lecture halls do not fill themselves. Grant proposals do not draft and revise themselves. And administrative systems do not build or maintain themselves. This work is performed overwhelmingly by the university's staff employees, and a letter celebrating the university's mission that renders the people doing the work invisible in the very act of naming their labor is itself an illustration of the structural problem that this proclamation addresses. And whereas the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, despite bearing the title Mission and Values on its institutional website, does not in fact maintain a publicly articulated set of institutional values. The page contains only a mission statement approved by the Board of Governors in 2009, last amended in 2014, and offers no statement of the principles that should govern how this university treats the people who work within it. And whereas this absence stands in sharp and troubling contrast to the practice of peer institutions across the nation, North Carolina State University articulates 7 core institutional values, including a commitment to community, defined as respecting and caring for all the university, valuing the contributions of every member, and helping one another succeed, and a commitment to integrity, defined as transparency and accountability in governance. The University of Virginia maintains both a mission statement and a university code of ethics for faculty and staff, which commits the institution to a respectful workforce in which every individual is treated with kindness, dignity, and respect, regardless of position or status. Duke University defines its community as leaders, students, scholars, healthcare providers, and staff, a formulation that explicitly names staff as members of the community rather than merely as instruments of its mission, and commits the institution to a standard under which it will not justify disregard for its principles and expectations on the basis of expediency or achieving short-term objectives that are viewed as more important than its values. And the University of Michigan, the University of Texas at Austin, and other peer institutions similarly maintain explicit institutional value frameworks that name their obligations to employees. And, ooh, y'all. Whereas the university's own mission statement describes the institution's purpose in exclusively outward-facing terms, service to North Carolina, the United States, and the world, the teaching of students, and the extension of knowledge to citizens, while mentioning faculty and staff only as instruments of those purposes, stating that the university achieves its mission through efforts of our exceptional faculty and staff without articulating any reciprocal obligation to those same people. And whereas the university retired its prior strategic plan, although that language could change because the chancellor just mentioned that maybe that's not entirely accurate. But as it stands, whereas the university retired its prior strategic plan, Carolina Next, without issuing the final report publicly promised for spring of 2025, a document now more than 1 year overdue and still unpublished, and has replaced it with 4 working group initiative reports rather than a new comprehensive strategic plan, covering enrollment planning, generative AI, the physical master plan, and applied sciences, which contain no publicly available key performance indicators, measurable targets, or accountability mechanisms. And whereas this absence of an overarching institutional framework which defined values and measurable commitments to the university's workforce has created conditions in which significant decisions affecting thousands of employees can be made, accelerated, and implemented without transparent rationale, without meaningful staff input, and without any institutional standard against which these decisions can be evaluated. And whereas the Employee Forum's own analysis of publicly available university salary data covering the period of April 1st to December 31st, 2025, documents the following concerning findings regarding the state of UNC-Chapel Hill's staff workforce. A, the university's non-faculty staff workforce contracted by a net of 295 positions during this period through attrition that fell unevenly and hardest on units least able to absorb it, rather than through strategic reduction of genuinely redundant roles, including a net loss of 25 staff in housekeeping services and continued headcount decline in facilities. And B, total annualized staff payroll decrease in approximately $19.4 million during this same period, even as total university payroll remained nominally stable because payroll growth was concentrated entirely in the clinical and athletic labor departments, or markets, bypassing the campus support workforce that sustains the university's academic operations. And whereas the university now effectively operates as two distinct financial entities, the high-growth, market-competitive clinical and athletics enterprise, and contracting, budget-constrained academic and administrative institution. And this divergence reflects deliberate institutional choices that deprioritize the supporting, quote, invisible labor, end quote, that keeps this whole institution running. And whereas the university's fiscal year 26-27 all funds budget presented to the Board of Trustees Budget, Finance, and Infrastructure Committee on March 25th, 2026, identifies as administrative staff reductions as the single largest planned savings strategy in the university budget, with a total planned savings target of $25 million, and projects that administrative staff reduction savings will increase from $7 million in fiscal year 26 to $19.5 million in fiscal year 27, a planned acceleration of $12.5 million in a single fiscal year without providing the university community with a transparent, specific accounting of how this acceleration will be achieved, which positions and units will bear the impact, or what criteria will guide those decisions. And whereas it may be expected that, and even acceptable, for corporate business to operate utilizing handshakes, bribery, secrecy, and nepotistic backroom deals, that is not how higher education operates, and doing so has already started to influence public perception to the detriment of this university's reputation in the academic world and among future students who will be recruited to enroll at other universities, and conflicts with the Chancellor's stated goals of achieving excellence. And whereas Chancellor Roberts in a public interview, oops, I scrolled too hard. Whereas Chancellor Roberts in a public interview published by the Daily Tar Heel on April 13th, 2026, stated that, quote, layoffs are always a last resort, end quote, and yet the budget targets described above have not been accompanied by any public plan for how those targets will be met consistent with that commitment, leaving staff employees without assurance that the Chancellor's stated principle will govern the university's actions in 2027. And whereas the Employee Forum adopted Resolution 2505 in October of 2025, formally requesting that university leadership incorporate forum representatives into service-first governance structures, ensuring consideration of staff perspectives across all pay grades, and establish a structured feedback process. And the university's response to this resolution has been materially inadequate. The forum received 2 representative seats rather than the 6 requested. Those seats were offered after fundamental strategic direction of Service First had already been determined, rather than at the front end where forum input could have shaped it, and no formal structured feedback process with accountability mechanisms has been established. And whereas this body has previously acted on analogous grounds, in Proclamation 1501, adopted in October 7, 2015, the Employee Forum declared it could not support a decision to outsource university services because the criteria for such action established in the forum's own resolution 9602 had not been met. Among them, that any such decision must be based on long-term perspective rather than short-term gains, must consider the organizational knowledge long-term employees bring to the university's core functions, must include adequate monitoring provisions, and must follow a decision-making process that is open and includes wide participation from the university's community. The current situation in which a major workforce restructuring initiative is being accelerated without a transparent plan, without adequate, without adequate forum participation, and without any institutional values framework to provide accountability, presents the same fundamental failure of process and principle that led this body to act in 2015. And whereas the pattern in which staff are informed of consequential decisions rather than consulted before them, in which the forum is offered participation calibrated to manage its concerns rather than genuinely incorporate them, and in which the absence of defined institutional values means there is no standard against which any of this can be held accountable, is inconsistent with the kind of institution UNC claims to be, aspires to be, or should be as the nation's first public university. And whereas Duke University's institutional values framework articulates a commitment that its community will not justify disregard for its principles and expectations on the basis of expediency or achieving short-term objectives that are viewed as more important than its values, the employee forum commits that this standard, which UNC-Chapel has not adopted, describes precisely the situation UNC's staff workforce now faces. A $12.5 million single-year acceleration in position reductions implemented at speed without adequate consultation in service of an arbitrary and reductive target without institutional values framework to provide protection or accountability. Be it proclaimed that the Employee Forum finds it unacceptable that the nation's first public university, more than 2 centuries into its history, has not articulated institutional values that include any commitment to the people who make it function, and that this absence represents a structural failure with real consequences for real people, one that goes beyond procedural omission. Be it proclaimed that the Employee Forum is deeply alarmed by the pace and scale of planned administrative staff reductions in fiscal year 2027, by the absence of any public plan explaining how a $12.5 million single-year acceleration in savings will be achieved without broad-based layoffs, and by the growing body of evidence, including the forum's own salary analysis, the fiscal year 2027 budget materials, and the university's pattern of engagement with Service First, that the university's administration and operational staff workforce is being systematically reduced without adequate transparency, without adequate consultation, and without adequate regard for the operational capacity, institutional knowledge, and welfare of the people affected. Be it proclaimed that the Employee Forum reaffirms in the strongest possible terms the principles set forth in Resolution 2505 and finds that the university leadership response falls well short of what was requested and what is owed to the employees of this institution. Be it proclaimed that the Employee Forum stands with every staff employee of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and in particular with those in the lowest paid and hardest hit positions in housekeeping, facilities, administrative support, and other essential services, whose contributions are inseparable from this university's ability to pursue its mission, and who deserve better from the institution they serve. And be it proclaimed that the Employee Forum will continue to advocate publicly and persistently on behalf of all of the employees of this university until the conditions described in this proclamation are meaningfully addressed, because we cannot in good conscience support or be used to facilitate the progress of any initiative by the university's leaders that diminish staff, make the very real labor underpinning this university invisible, damage our institutional reputation, or use obfuscations to avoid the accountability of our leaders.
Thank you, Sarah. That was a lot of reading. That's right. And I don't know if my parliamentarian is online. First reading, is there any discussion, I think, is next on the list. There are some comments in the chat. All right, well, let me pull up the chat. Well, hang on a second. Oops, that's a registration.
And just to be clear, with this being a proclamation, there only has to be one reading.
Correct. Yeah, and we can, and there is the option, if we decide to table that, we can bring it back for a vote
Yes.
in June.
Yes.
So comment in the chat from Randall. As someone who has spent many years working in corporate environments, I find the following phrase highly objectionable and incongruent with my experience of policies, guardrails, and practices in place in those environments. As with anything else, there will be violations, but it is wrong, inaccurate, and highly biased to characterize the typical corporate environment this way. And I strongly recommend completely striking this phrase, whereas it may be expected and even acceptable for corporate businesses to operate utilizing handshakes, bribery, secrecy, and nepotistic backroom deals. These behaviors are not expected or acceptable in any corporate environment, at least not in U.S. culture, and this characterization of corporate environments is unnecessary and doesn't contribute to this proclamation, but rather detracts from it.
May I respond to Randall?
You may.
Thank you, Randall, for your thoughts and your input. I don't think that many people would disagree that it is an unacceptable environment. This point, while it may still be struck, is in direct response to the article that came out exposing the way that the leaders at UNC attempted to move the Dean Dome to Campus North without input from a majority of campus stakeholders. So not to say we can't strike it, but I did want to just name, this is not an arbitrary inclusion. This was direct. And at the bottom of this document, all of our sources are cited.
No, I just want to be clear. I wasn't recommending striking the entire paragraph. I'm only saying that the beginning of that paragraph just feels to me like an unnecessary cheap shot at corporate environments. And I don't think, the second half of that paragraph is fine. It's just that I think it sounds very biased and very even inaccurate to characterize in general corporate environments the way the first half of the paragraph says, but I'm not objecting to the second half of the paragraph.
I really appreciate you clarifying that. I misunderstood your comment, Randall. And I'm happy if folks want to just drop in the chat. I mean, we could even just restart the paragraph at handshakes, etc. But other rephrases are welcome in the chat. Thank you.
Maybe we can say even acceptable for other business structures to operate instead of using corporate.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I'm understanding from Randall, and again, Randall, please speak up if I'm misunderstanding you, is that maybe we don't want to even claim its acceptability anywhere. So I'm happy to strike acceptability out of the beginning of the paragraph.
Sarah, Keith, here. One, I don't necessarily love the phrasing of it myself, but for a different reason. I could care less what the corporate world thinks of me. I'm not going to attack you on that point. I'm just not. But for me, when I read it, the part that I think we may need to temper and change is it gave me the illusion, the impression that we may have been saying that the university had used some of these tactics of handshakes, bribery, secrecy, and nepotistic backroom deals. And that may be the sentiment that you were trying to provide. I don't know. I'm just trying to gain some clarity myself.
Thank you for your question, Keith. That is precisely the clarity, the vibe we were trying to convey. we do feel that that is what happened based on reports and information and publicly available documents.
Okay, thank you. No, that's all I needed. So just to be clear, as this is a proclamation from the body, that goes into the public record, it is saying that this body is saying this. Are we saying, as the UNC Employee Forum, that we believe the university used backroom handshakes, bribery, secrecy, and nepotistic backroom deals to try to push this, the moving of the Dean Smith Center to Carolina North? And I'm only asking is because we're all going to vote on this. And so all of us on the roll, regardless of whether you vote yay or nay, if it passes, this is what we are saying as the body. We are on record as saying this.
Sorry, I'm just going to clarify again that I don't believe that the way it's stated is claiming that it happened so much as it is saying these types of behaviors are not how higher education operates, and doing so. Oh, I see. So are you saying the has started to influence public perception is the phrasing that you believe is attributing blame? Is that correct, Keith?
Yes, somewhat. Yes.
It does sound like an accusation, and I'm not trying to defend corporate environments. I'm just saying it sounds like an accusation.
Does the addition of accusations of this happening alleviate your concerns, Keith? Because I agree with you. The intention was not to make that accusation in this proclamation. It was to say that because that accusation has already been made, it went into the New York Times. This is a New York Times article. This was a Daily Tar Heel article. The accusation has been made, and that accusation has impacted the reputation of our university.
Can I add something? Sorry, Sarah G, this is Natasha. And I haven't read the New York Times article that y'all are referencing, but I wonder if it actually is more meaningful if instead of talking about what we're seeing as unacceptable ways of acting as a university, that we actually try and frame it as these are ways we would prefer to see the university operate. And that's through transparency, collaboration, insert whatever to accomplish the latter half of that paragraph. Just because I do think, based on some of the concerns that have been brought up and just some of the murkiness of this, accusations are not facts. And so I think just in being mindful of the credibility of us as a body and trying to be strategic about making an impact with this proclamation, I wonder if that would be more meaningful.
Elizabeth, did I see your hand up? Oh, hang on 1 second. I didn't see the hand up. Cody? Oh, you are right here. Cody and then Elizabeth, sorry.
That's all good. I wanted to second a lot of that. We've made some edits since I threw my hand up. I think that's a good direction to go. I did want to check, do we have any sources or links for this on the bottom of this iteration? Yeah. All right, cool. The email I saw from Matthew didn't have that. Okay, cool. Appreciate it.
Elizabeth?
Out of respect for our time today and the amount of work that really has gone and should go into this, may I ask that we treat this as a draft and work on it some more. I want to remind everybody, one of my favorite things, our state motto is to be rather than to seem. And there I'm appreciating Keith's and Randall's comments and keeping stereotypes out of this, except where they do belong. And we are risking our reputation as a university. Even the word "our" is unclear to me, because who's driving the decisions, who's accountable for the mistakes? These are all really issues to me. And our reputation as an academic institution is something a lot of us hold very dear. I'd like us to work on this some more, and I wonder if that's okay with everybody talking about it right now.
Sarah?
I mean, I would love to, because we have a resolution planned to follow this, I would love to propose it, given the removed and rewritten paragraph as it is. The change is now stated, I'm reading it for the record, whereas university leaders acting without transparency, honesty, and clarity of purpose has already started to influence public perception to the detriment of this university's reputation in the academic world and among future students who will be recruited to enroll at other universities, and conflicts with the Chancellor's stated goals of achieving excellence. I would like to pose it as is, without further, if that paragraph was the only point of contention, there was great discussion. I think we have achieved a reworded, compromise. I mean, a reworded, paragraph. I would like to pose it as is. And if it fails, I'm happy to carry on and create a new committee and keep it moving for next month, if that's acceptable.
I have a counter thought, and that this is just me. As being someone who was not a part of the small committee that wrote this, you all, whoever was on the committee, and I don't know, I'm assuming that you were, Sarah, you all have sat with this longer than we have. This is probably the longest proclamation I've ever seen in my life, which is fine because there's a lot in it, and there's a lot of very good and valid things to proclaim. I just think that because there is so much, people may need to read it again to fully understand all of the whereases, and to because I think some people may just be remembering a couple that stuck out to them the most, but there's many of them. And not having been someone who was in the room where it happened, shout out to Hamilton, that people may need to read and process this one again, to give a full and accurate vote. Like if we voted today, because I can't remember everything that was said, and I've not reconciled everything that was said, I would either have to vote no or abstain from voting.
This sounds like what I'm hearing is either to call the vote or to take a motion to table this until the next meeting, pending further discussion on the proclamation. Sounds like those are the two things I am hearing. Does anybody wish to make a motion in one direction or the other?
I move to hold the proclamation. We will reform a committee. Please Teams message myself if you would like to be on that drafting committee. And if not, just know this link that you all have, or we will send out the link to this. You will have 1 month, and we will re-propose it at the June meeting with its accompanying resolution.
So, is that a motion to table?
I'll second.
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion to table? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
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 All those,
Aye.
oops, sorry. All those opposed to tabling, please say no. Any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion has, or this proclamation has been tabled. Please do reach out to Sarah, and we will reconsider this proclamation at the June meeting. At this time, I have no additional announcements. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Welcome to the new delegates. You had a very full meeting and a very spicy meeting for your first one. So welcome aboard. Consider yourself full members of the forum. We will get your pins out to you if you were not able to join us in person. I hope everyone has a chance to at least, if nothing else, enjoy and smile when you see folks across campus in the robes doing pictures. And if you are working on graduation in some form or fashion, good luck. And thank you for all you do to celebrate our students at this very important time of year. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Third, and congrats to everybody helping people graduate. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes. All right. Unless I have objections, I will consider this meeting adjourned, and I will see everyone in June, if not sooner. Thank you.